So I co-authored the report with my colleague, Barbara McCarthy. We were aware of anecdotal evidence of, an increase in fear, a lack of safety. Women were reporting this. And obviously we had the horrific case of the alleged rape of a 10-year-old on the grounds of City West. So we decided to take a dive into the data as it exists across Europe, and we took a random sample of 6 EU countries, EU member states, and what we found was quite stark. So it turns out that in these member states where criminal statistics on sexual offending is released and is published with regard to the ethnicity and the country of origin of the men involved, it turns out that non-national men in these countries are 3 to 4 times more likely to be involved in sexual offending than native men of those host countries. And that pattern holds throughout all of the entire sample. And in fact, so a factor of 3 times more in terms of being overrepresented. This is non-national men. But when you break that down further, that figure, it's even worse. So what we found was for particular regions of the world, the MENAP region, which is Morocco, Middle East, North Africa, Pakistan, Turkey, men from those regions are oftentimes 10 times or even 20 times more likely to be involved in certain types of sexual offences, for example, gang rape. We also saw emergent trends of certain types of group sexual offending. Some I would classify as opportunistic. So, for example, in Cologne, up to 1,000 women were assaulted by groups of North African men who surrounded them and then sexually assaulted them in an organised manner, but making use of the sort of chaos and the revelry of that moment in a public space. But then also, obviously, in Louise Casey's report in England, which documented organised group sexual offending, whereby criminal gangs were trafficking, grooming, using the lover boy technique to target underclass white working class girls. And then the Louise Casey mandatory recommendations, which I think is very salient to Ireland, and we have to learn these lessons. She says that considerations for political correctness and a fear of being seen to be racist was in fact what allowed that scandal to go on to such an extent. And some estimates say that over 250,000 girls were raped. So it's really at an industrial scale in the UK. And so what we're trying to do with this report is to say that we must learn the lessons from the Casey report, which is very, very clear. We cannot allow fears of racism get in the way of dealing with realities when it comes to correlations. And we also need to really bring in a safeguarding sensibility to our immigration policies in Ireland today. I welcome Jim O'Callaghan's sort of toughening up of rhetoric and of policy when it comes to how we deal with international protection applicants. For example, he is really admitting that a lot of them are economic migrants and they'll have to pay their way. But what I would like to see is, first and foremost, a release of disaggregated data when it comes to ethnicity and country of origin, because otherwise we're basically building our policy on wishful thinking or an ideological proposition, and we need to base policy on fact. If indeed there is a greater risk to women and girls because of this population of on-screened men from particular countries in particular, as per the data showed in the report, then we need to address that and make sure that the human rights of women and girls are protected, and not just this population of male immigrants who are coming here seeking protection.